Welcome to video 4 on subroutines. A subroutine is a term that's used to encompass both procedures and functions. They allow you to create a block of code and you can call that block of code multiple times. This makes your programs more efficient and saves you lots of time. When you see these types of exam question, you really have to pay particular attention to exactly what's being asked. I would read these kind of questions multiple times to make sure you know exactly what the exam board wants from you. Are you being given some parameters to use? Are you returning a value? Does it specify that you're passing by reference or by value? First up, let's have a look at some functions. The key term is the word function. So we've got function, triple, then number. Number is a parameter, a variable that we can use inside our function. The key to a function is that it always returns a value. It's got to have that return keyword. So we're going to take our parameter, number, and we're going to multiply it by 3. You always end a function in pseudocode so that it's got a very clear start. We've got our function, key term, and then end function at the end when the block of code finishes. When we call a function, we have to make sure that that call takes place after our function block. This is because in memory, you can't call something that does not exist yet. Because we're returning a value, you have to do something with the data that's being returned. So you could put it in a variable, for example. So in this case, we've got y equals triple 7. This would pass 7 to the function. That would then become number. We'll do number times 3 and we will return 21. That would then be assigned to the variable y. You could also print. Again, there might be some argument for saying that if you are just going to print or display information, you might be better off using a procedure. But that depends on the exam question that you're being asked. We can use functions as expressions. Remember our rule, an expression, for example, x equals 3 times 7, has to be equated before it can be assigned. So we do the 3 times 7 and then pop that, assign it to the variable x. We do exactly the same with the function. So we've got triple 7, we equate that first, we work that bit out, and then we assign that to the variable y. We always equate to a single value before we assign. Procedures are very slightly different. We use the key term procedure and then we give it a name, in this case greeting. We can still pass parameters, that works exactly the same, but this time we don't return any information. In our example, we've got a procedure called greeting and we pass it a name. We can then print out hello and the name, we can concatenate that string. So it should say, if we passed it, for example, Hamish, hello, Hamish. The only time that variables could change is if you're passing by reference. You've got a link to the original variable. Once again, the call to the procedure goes after the procedure block of code. It has to be in memory if we're going to jump to it. So we can't call greeting unless that already exists in memory. So we'd put the procedure greeting before our greeting call. OCR like you to be aware of 2 different types of passing parameters, by value and by reference. If you don't see by val or by reference, you can assume that they are passing by value. The main difference between the two is that by value is a copy of the original data, meaning that if we change x in our foobar procedure, the original data will not be changed at all. Y, being passed by reference, has a link to the original data. Therefore, when we change y, the original data will change too. It's very subtly different, and in some ways it's slightly out of date for how modern language is used. But it's very important to understand the theory because this is how objects typically work. We'll come to more object-oriented programming in a later video. You should now have enough information to be able to complete all the lesson 2 exercises. Next time round, we'll be looking at arrays.